I just bought this Mac and I want to explain exactly why I'm using it for cybersecurity. It's not that Windows is bad or that Linux is not important. It's just that macOS makes certain things much cleaner and much faster. Most vulnerabilities today come from open source projects, meaning you have to read the source code, read commits, and also build those projects locally. Windows can do this, but it usually requires WSL or other layers of compatibility. Those layers work, but it just slows down your whole process. macOS is Unix-based, so this workflow is native for open source projects, making research simpler and faster. Fewer layers mean quicker feedback when you're trying to learn how vulnerabilities work. So we need that. Most security tools are built for Linux first. That includes scanners, exploit frameworks, and fuzzers. On Windows, you're usually running this through WSL or another virtual machine. That works, but it's going to add more maintenance time and more setup time. Time we don't have. I would say macOS acts as a clean bridge between development and security tooling. Now, I would say this is probably my most important reason on why I'm using Mac. Apple itself controls the OS and the hardware. Windows typically has to support a wide range of hardware and not one specific piece. And the issues do show up. Driver issues, inconsistent behavior, and sometimes I just don't know what's going to happen. For security research, debugging, long sessions, you're going to want something that's consistent each time you turn your computer on, not it overheating and then you can't even use it. A predictable system makes security research easier and more reliable. Now, in terms of productivity, in cybersecurity, you're going to be context switching a lot, maybe like every 30 minutes. I'm talking about reading source code, reading your terminal, reading your Visual Studio code, and then opening up Wireshark, Nmap, Google Chrome, all these different topics. Windows can be productive, but you need third-party tools, you need to install these different things, and it just adds more headache and more updates and more maintenance. macOS has a lot of productivity features already installed to make things easier. Coolest things I've experienced on Mac is probably all the gestures you can do on the trackpad. For example, doing 3 finger swipes will switch desktops, doing a pinch will bring in mission control, and a bunch of different gestures that keep coming out that just simply make your life easier. If you wanted to simply search anything on your computer, you can do Command Space for the Spotlight search as well. As mentioned earlier, macOS is Unix-based. So out of the box, it already comes with Bash, SSH, OpenSSL, Python, grep, and anything else you might need for Linux. macOS has recently came out with automations. You can essentially chain actions together with hotkeys or a few clicks, or you can automate repetitive tasks, things that are just boring and in your way. Because the hardware and the OS are all developed by Apple themselves, a lot of the applications are stable. The fact that the memory management is predictable makes it simpler and easier to use all these applications. Now, the last one is focus mode. I really like this because it essentially silences everything out and it only allows specific apps or people to be contacting you. Now, that's a lot of features, but it's not really about the features, it's about the environment itself. Getting up in the morning, turning your computer on, and starting work as soon as possible, rather than having to debug some kind of driver, some kind of maintenance, something not working, your fan overheating. I just got fed up. Less friction means longer work sessions. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Windows because there's a lot of bugs in it, and I can do a lot of security research on it. I still use Windows for security research, malware analysis, Active Directory research, but I'm doing it remotely. I rather just use my Mac and connect over to a Windows machine. That way it does all the work on the Windows machine, but I have the performance of my Mac. This physical isolation makes your main system more secure, but also you still get to hack on Windows. Now, it's possible to do all these things in Windows, don't get me wrong. It just takes more maintenance, more time, more debugging, more things that don't work. And then you don't have these kinds of luxuries when it comes to security research. You need to get out there, publish, and get out the door. I'm using macOS as my daily driver now because security research is mostly open source, Linux-based, and workflow heavy. Now, you still need Windows, and Linux is definitely important. macOS is simply the system that ties everything together more efficiently, faster, and with less headache. I'd argue that cybersecurity isn't really about the operating system you prefer, but more about building the environment to help you stay consistent, do focused work, and actually get some security research done. If this helped you decide what system to use, let me know down in the comments. I want to know why. Also, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow my cybersecurity reading challenge.